Own Backup protects against data loss and corruption by providing enterprise-level control of data across all your Salesforce orgs from a single dashboard. Interactive graphs make it easy to identify Salesforce data changes over time, and automated daily backups protect your Salesforce data, metadata, and attachments. Manage proactively with customizable smart alerts that notify you whenever data is added, changed, or deleted. Quickly search your entire backup archive to find specific records, remove records individually or in bulk, and stay compliant with internal and external regulations, including GDPR. Compare backups at the click of a button to locate the exact point at which data was lost or corrupted, and recover lost data quickly, regardless of scale. With Own Backup, you can restore data records with their corresponding parent-child relationships down to any level of granularity. Speed up development with Own Backup Sandbox Seeding and Replicate to create anonymized test data sets in minutes, while advanced key management and access controls help to keep your data secure. Backup, compare, recover, replicate, and comply with Own Backup for Salesforce.
We were just a bunch of nerdy kids who ignored the haters. We took their ridicule and we built on it. And when some of us gave up, well, we built on that too. Built resilience, built on a mission to make things a little better every day until the users came. Then the haters were VCs who scoffed at our audacity. This just isn't the way things are done. But we kept building. Users turned into teams, turned into companies, running their entire businesses on our apps. Then the software giants came after us. We weren't proven, we weren't fully featured, our radical cloud model wasn't secure. But we built on. And today, as companies adopt the cloud to move faster, teams are finding themselves slowed down by each other's efforts. The skeptics are claiming we'll never develop innovation at scale. But now, DevOps have come to the cloud, ushering in a new era of transformation. Companies can release on demand across hundreds of environments, innovating faster with fewer conflicts and fewer disruptions. There will always be challenges. There will always be naysayers. And we'll build on.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending upon your location. Welcome to Virtual Dreaming 2020. I'm your host, Aditya Shahi, and we have Evan Ponter with us, and he will talk about how we can approach Salesforce reporting in a whole new way.
This is Approach Reporting Like Never Before, the ultimate guide to report types. My name is Evan Ponter. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Ponter Solutions, a Salesforce consultant shop that would love to help you with any Salesforce challenges you have. You can reach me on Twitter at RealEvanPonter, LinkedIn, and my email address is up there too. But today, what I really want to talk about is a totally new framework that I've developed to really simplify the entire reporting experience in Salesforce. And at its core, the concept is actually really simple. You can create a single custom report type per object in your Salesforce org and set it up in a way that's incredibly flexible so that you can achieve all kinds of reporting scenarios and get all sorts of data that you're looking to get and combine throughout your Salesforce org. So a lot of the examples I'm going to show today are based on the opportunity object, but keep in mind that this framework and this concept can be applied to any object. All you have to do is set up a custom report type for that object. And it's going to be anytime you want the rows in your report results to represent object X and you want to reference fields from plenty of other objects, just make sure you set up your custom report type on the object whose records should be represented as rows in your report. I'm going to talk a lot about that. The reason I came up with this framework was I was starting at my first Salesforce administrator job a few years ago, and I was getting pummeled with report requests. The organization was dying to get data out of Salesforce. Everybody's putting their data into Salesforce, and they need a way to get the data back out and do all of the analytics they're hoping to do and combine all the different data points that are spread across their organization in different objects. And I was trying to help them out. So I jumped into Salesforce and I went to go create a new report, and I came across this screen. This is the first decision you have to make when you go to build a report. You have to choose a report type. And if somebody's asking you for like an opportunities report and you type in the word opportunities, there are dozens of options for you to choose from. And it can be pretty overwhelming when you just need to knock out some of these report requests. Now, a lot of these report types are standard. They come with Salesforce. That screenshot I was just showing was a very vanilla org that I set up that didn't have any managed packages in it. If you do install managed packages, chances are a lot of those will come with their own report types, if they have any custom objects or created any custom relationships. You might not have found any success with either of those options, so you might be creating your own custom report types. And then you'll run into this concept of with or without report types. And just what does it all mean? You know, we're trying to just get data out of Salesforce. We have all these reporting requests piling up on our desk, and we just need to choose the right report type and start building the report. And what do you do when you have so many options to choose from and you can't take the time to go and dissect what each one of those report types is and what they do and how they work? Well, you kind of cross your fingers, hope for the best, and choose one that sounds right. And that was my strategy at first. And I would get started building the report and would add all my groupings and get all the filters set up and add the report charts and have everything looking really nice. And I would run that report, hand it over to the user, say, hey, is this what you're looking for? And they would immediately come back to me frustrated because they would tell me, hey, the same record is showing up multiple times in the report. I didn't want this. Or they'll tell me, how can I include fields from this other object? You know, I might have gone through the steps of creating a custom report type to pull in fields from one or two different objects, but of course, they want more. Everybody always wants more if they can have more. And thirdly, users would come tell me, hey, I'm not seeing all the records I wanted to see. What gives? This report is wrong. Salesforce is wrong, right? Now, especially on this last point, Salesforce is never wrong. Salesforce does exactly what you tell it to do. And there's actually 5 distinct reasons why you're not seeing all the data you want to see in your Salesforce report. So I want to take a moment to step through all 5 of those distinct reasons right now. Filters, 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 filters. I can't say it enough time. If your report is not showing you the data you want it to show you, it's because your data is being filtered out somehow. Now, there are 5 kinds of filters to be on the lookout for. And the good news is filters 2 through 5 on this slide can be changed at any point. It's no big deal. If you're running a report and you need to tweak a field filter or the time frame, not a big deal. But the very first filter listed on this slide is the report type. Did you know that the report type is the first filter being applied to your data? It is sort of grounding you in which object do you want to start from as your reference point. And what's unfortunate about the report type being a filter is you can't change your report type once you get started building a report. You've sort of locked in that filter. That filter is now part of your report, and if you want to change it, you're going to have to start over completely. I know a lot of you have probably experienced that after you spend a couple hours building a report and then it dawns on you the report type is wrong. You've just wasted a couple hours of your time. So when I realized this, I set out to really understand, how do report types work? How are they filtering my data? And what can I do to set up report types that are going to be flexible to meet a lot of different needs? So I don't have to keep coming up against this wall of changing the report type every time it's not giving me exactly what I want. So I set out on this journey and I started experimenting with custom report types. So I would go in the setup menu, create a new custom report type, and set accounts as the primary object. And then you can see on the screen, it lets you relate other objects. And that's sort of what Salesforce encourages you to do if you want to bring in fields from other objects. You sort of start with an object and you're allowed to bring in its child objects. So again, starting from accounts as the primary object, you can work your way down your data architecture. And what I realized at this point was everything that the reporting engine is capable of in Salesforce is 100% related to your data model. The relationships that you set up between your objects allow you to reference fields from other objects in the report builder. If your data model is incorrect, where your one-to-many relationships are not set up in the right direction, or maybe not at all, then it's going to be very difficult to bring in data from disparate objects in your Salesforce org. So right off the bat, these object relationships, they let you move down your data architecture hierarchy. And what I mean by that is you can move from a parent object to a child object, from the one side of the one-to-many relationship to the many side. Accounts have many contacts, so you can relate that in. And from contacts, you can choose another child object like contracts. And from there, you can choose another child object like opportunities. And when you use this method, you've probably already experienced this. There's a 4 object limit. You can't add any more objects than 4 when you're relating them through the object relationships in custom report types. And it's interesting to sort of think about what kind of report you can get with this report type. It's not really fair to call it an accounts report, even though we specified accounts as our primary object. What you're actually going to see in the results for this report type is a list of opportunity records, and each one of them has got to be related to a contract, and each one of those contracts has to be related to a contact, and each one of those contacts has to be related to an account. And that's when it dawned on me what the primary object really means, is that every single record in your report has to have a relationship back to the primary object. Otherwise, that record is going to be filtered out. If any one of these lookup fields were blank along this hierarchy, going from opportunities back to account, that row would be filtered out of the reports and results entirely. So that is how your report type is filtering your results. Since you're only getting a filtered list of records for the object at the bottom, and all of the records need to be related back to the account, anytime you go setting up your custom report type with a bunch of objects and the object relationships, you're just layering on the filters. You're not going to be able to get all opportunities in your org unless every single one of them satisfies all of those relationships back to the primary object. Because of that, a report type like this only handles a very specific reporting scenario. If you wanted to add in fields from the related campaign, or maybe the price book, or some custom information you keep track of, oops, let me go back to where I was. Sorry about that. Okay. So if you wanted to add in fields from these related objects, it is not easy to do so when you're using this method of enforcing objects in your custom report type object relationships. So I thought there has to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a way to create more flexible report types. And knowing what I knew at this point about the primary object and what the results of the report are going to be based on the objects in the report type, I thought, what if we flip the whole thing upside down? What if we define a new framework that simplifies these custom report types so we don't have all these filters embedded in them? And here's what I came up with. As my Canadian rapper friend would say, start from the bottom. If we define an object that we want to have its records represented by rows in our report, take that object and make it the primary object in your custom report type. You can actually edit the custom report type layout in order to bring in reference fields from lots of other objects. Now again, this is all dependent on your data architecture hierarchy, the relationships that you have set up in Salesforce. And using this method, you can start from the bottom and you can actually work your way up your hierarchy. So you can start on the many side of the one-to-many relationship and keep traversing to parent records, and from there to grandparent records and great-grandparent records. So using this method with opportunities as our primary object in our custom report type, we can easily bring in fields from the same 4-object hierarchy we saw on the last slide. And with a few extra clicks, we can bring in those campaign fields, any field we want from the price book, information about the contact creator, the account owner, literally any lookup field or master detail field that exists on your primary object or any object above it in your data architecture hierarchy, meaning all of these parent records, grandparent records, great-grandparent records, and yes, even great-great-grandparent records. We can traverse those relationships and bring in any of those fields from any of those objects, all in one custom report type that shows you opportunity records. And you just have a bunch of references to all the other information you need to make that report happen. Now, I like to call this a deluxe report type. The best news is it's totally free. There's nothing you need to install. There's nothing you need to buy. This works on every edition of Salesforce, from professional all the way up to unlimited. If you have Salesforce, you can make this work. And all it takes is 3 easy steps. Step 1 is to choose your primary object. Again, this is going to be a simplified custom report type that has a lot of incredible flexibility because of how we set this up. And the primary object, again, is going to be which object do you want to have its records represented by rows in your report. So if you chose opportunities and just ran a tabular report, you're going to see a list of opportunity records. Step 2 is don't define any object relationships. Essentially what I've done here is taken what we know about the primary object and what we know about what's going to show up in our report results, and I've collapsed that hierarchy. So the primary object is the same thing that's showing up in our report results. So we actually don't have any object relationships in our custom report type. We just have the primary object that we want to show its records as rows in the report. And step 3 is where a lot of the magic happens. This is where you can edit your custom report type layout in order to bring in all of those reference fields from related objects. So let me show you just how easy it is to set one of these up. Again, I'm going into my Lightning enabled Salesforce org. Everything I'm showing you works in Lightning. It works in Classic. As long as you have Salesforce and you have permission to create custom report types, you can set up your own deluxe report type. I'm in the setup menu and I've searched for the word report types. It shows up under feature settings, analytics, reports and dashboards, then report types. And I'm going to go ahead and click new custom report type. Again, the first thing we're going to do is choose our primary object. I'm going to use opportunities for this example, where every row in the report results will be an opportunity record, and we'll be able to reference information from all of the parent, grandparent, etc. For the report type label, I like to name it the name of the object and then deluxe in parentheses. And this is just step 1 of many for how I'm going to show you you can distinguish your custom report types and sort of get rid of that overwhelming choose a report type screen. So stay on the lookout for more on that later, but right off the bat, we have a naming convention that's going to help bring some sense to the madness. Now in the description, I like to list every row represents an opportunity record, just to make it very clear for anybody using this report type. These are the results you're going to get, is a list of opportunity records. After that, I list all of the objects that I'm referencing as I'm adding fields from other objects in this custom report type. And this will help us later because, as you know, or you might not know, custom report types have to be manually managed, where if you add a new field to an object, you have to go add it to your custom report type. It doesn't happen automatically yet. There are some things in the works where Salesforce is trying to allow you to, when you create a new field, automatically add it to your custom report types. There are probably a few releases out from having a beta version of that. But for now, including all of these object names in the description will help us tremendously as we need to maintain these custom report types as we're adding new fields to our org. You can store this in a category. Unfortunately, there's no way that I know of to customize this list. I know that's also an idea you can vote on, but luckily for us, there is an opportunities category. And then down here, I'm going to mark this custom report type as deployed. That way it's visible for you and all of your users in your org. Then I'm going to go to the next screen. And again, this is probably the hardest step. You have to resist the urge to relate other objects in your custom report type. We want this to be incredibly flexible and as simple as we can make it so we're not embedding filters in our report type. So all we're going to do is leave opportunities set as the primary object and then click save. Now at this point, your custom report type is created, but we're not done yet. So I really wish this was step 3 of that create a custom report type wizard. Down here at the bottom, there's this edit layout button in the fields available for reports section. And this is where you can add additional fields to your custom report type layout. So if we click on that button, you'll see by default all of the fields from your primary object, and really it's any object that you've enforced in the object relationships for this custom report type. All of those fields are going to automatically be part of the layout. If you ever need to add new fields from those objects, you'll find this selector here will show you all of the objects that are enforced. For this custom report type, since it's a deluxe report type and just has opportunities as the primary object, opportunities is our only option. But we can scroll through these fields and we would find any new opportunity fields and we can drag them over onto our layout. Now, just above that, there's this hyperlink called add fields related via lookup. And this should be about 10 times bigger and have fireworks, because this is where you can start traversing those relationships in your org. When you click on that add fields related via lookup, you'll get this window that shows you all of the relationships on your primary object. This is all the lookup fields, all the master detail fields, any relationship that points to a parent object. So here we can traverse this contract relationship, and now we have access to any field on the contract object. Standard fields, custom fields. If the field exists, you can include it in your custom report type. So let's go through here and let's put in maybe the status, and we want the contract name, and we might want the contract end date. So we select the fields we want, and you'll notice they show up with this little magnifying glass icon. That lets you know that this field is being referenced from some other object aside from whatever's enforced in your custom report type. So that might help you out. But what I really like to do and would highly recommend is organize your report type layout into sections. So down here, you can create a new section, and at least at a minimum, create a section for every object you are referencing in your custom report type. Now, there are plenty of people who like to go crazy with this and want to set up all kinds of different sections for different aspects of your object and grouping those fields together. That's totally fine. Whatever method makes sense to you, absolutely take advantage of your ability to organize these fields. Now you can select multiple by holding down Control on PC or Command on Mac, and you can select multiple fields and drag them down. You can also use the Shift button. If you click on the first one, hold Shift and click on the last one, you can get a bunch at the same time that way too. Again, these sections are what shows up in your report builder. Over here on the left, we have this little folder for opportunities, opportunity owners, opportunity creators. Each one of those is a section in the custom report type layout. So as you add new sections, you'll see new folders here, and you'll see the headers if you're adding fields through the columns functionality this way. So that's what you're creating here. Now the fun doesn't have to stop there. So if we go back to add fields related via lookup and we traverse that contract relationship, then we can also traverse the relationships on this object. So if you watch the path up here, we started on opportunities, we went up to the contract. Now we can go to the customer who signed that contract, and we're looking at all of the fields that exist on the contact object at this point. And again, we can bring in as many as we want. So let's grab the email, first name, and last name. Again, I'm going to keep my custom report type layout organized. I'm going to add a new section for contacts. And I'm going to highlight those fields and drag them down. Let's do some more. So if we go back to add fields related via lookup, start on opportunities, we can go to the contract, we can go up to the customer who signed it, we can go to the account for that customer, and we can go one step further to the account owner for that account. Now we're looking at a user record, and we have access to all of the fields on the user record. And I'll also point out that we are able to include fields from 5 objects in a linear stepstone relationship. So we have fields from opportunity, fields from contract, the contact is the customer who signed it, the account name, and the account owner. So you get another step beyond what enforcing objects in the object relationships allows you to do. You can reference up to 60 unique objects in your custom report type. 60, that's 60. Way more than the 4 you get when you're enforcing object relationships, because you can start back at any one of these objects and follow a different relationship in order to grab fields from some other object. Again, it's up to 60 different objects. As far as fields, you can only select up to 1,000 fields, which is quite a lot, but if you are getting to every object and you're hitting select all, you're going to very quickly burn up your 1,000 field allocation. So what I like to do instead is only select the fields that are valuable, that actually have data in them and are providing value for your users in their report building experience. When's the last time you needed to report on this SU access expiration date or SU org admin expiration date field? They're standard fields on the user, but I have no idea what they do. I certainly don't need them taking up seats in my custom report type. So instead of selecting all, take the extra moment to go through and select only the fields you need that are going to provide value. And using that mentality, you can stay well within your 1,000 field allocation as you're building out these custom report types. So let's add those and let's get those organized. These are account owners. Now, depending on how complex your data model is, I have recommended sometimes to say something like via opportunities or whatever extra keywords you need to remind yourself how you got to that object. Take the opportunity to put it right in the section name so that that becomes very clear, especially if there's multiple ways to get to the same object. It might make sense to include some clues for yourself. So we're going to grab all those fields and we're going to put them down in that section. Again, you can go wild with this, up to 60 fields, up to, 60 unique objects, up to 1,000 fields. Just keep coming back to this add fields related via lookup and traversing all of those relationships. There's a couple other tricks I want to show you while we're on this screen. If you double click on any one of these fields, you'll have 2 options. You can change the display as value for the fields. Now this is super powerful because you're not changing the API name of the field, you're not changing the label for the field, you're just changing how this field displays in this custom report type. So sometimes you might want to rename the field completely, but at a minimum, when you're referencing fields from all these different objects and you get this default name that shows you all the relationships you traversed, you can come in here and you can shorten that up just by deleting it. especially for something like this, if you wanted to group by the account owner's title and you left that default name, it's going to be about a mile long. And grouping by that field would look very ugly because all the groups would be way longer than they need to be. So you can shorten up all those display values and keep your reports looking nice. You can also rename things completely if you so choose. The other option you have here is this checked by default. And what that does is it allows you to create a template. So any of the fields you have checked by default will be included as columns in a brand new report using that report type. So that's a great way to jumpstart your users and get them set up with a couple fields that they might want to be reporting on anyways, so they're not staring at a blank screen when they go to create a brand new report. On the flip side, I know some people get super aggravated to have a bunch of default columns in place because the first thing they do is go clear them out. Now what you can do on your custom report type is just go clear all the checked by default options, and then you'll have a blank slate as you're building your reports from scratch. Now, you could just click on one field at a time and set those options, but you might be trying to set this up for an entire section at once. So if you highlight all of the fields and double click or click on the Edit Properties button at the top or bottom, you can set those options for all of those fields in bulk, which is pretty nice. Another tidbit that I'll give you is you might have something like this where you want to shorten up all the names of these fields for the entire section. I did some digging into that to figure out what's the quickest way for me to do that, because I'm sick and tired of coming in here and deleting them one at a time. So if you right click on that window and show it as a tab, you'll have access to all of your Google Chrome extensions because it becomes a regular window. So I've installed this search and replace Google extension. And if you click on that, you can search for words that are on the screen and replace them with whatever you want. So if I wanted to get rid of this whole first part of the name for all these fields, I can paste that in there, hit replace all, and shorten up all those field names at the same time. Pretty handy. Now we got all those fields included, we got them looking nice. The other tidbit I'll give you is, you know, on every report, there's a default time frame filter right here, this close date. And if you ever notice, there's always a field that's set up by default for your time frame filter. Turns out it's just the very first date or date time field that shows up in your report layout. So this one is close date. And sure enough, if we go look, that's the fourth field in on our custom report type layout. If we wanted to swap that out for some other field as the default field to use for the time frame, all we have to do is drag that to be in a position higher than whatever field was there before. Now this report type will use the created date for the opportunity as the default field in the time frame filter. Just another way to tweak that experience and delight your users by getting them set up with fields that make sense, columns that make sense, and names that make sense when they're building their reports. So we can click save, and we have our custom report type all set up, looking great. But the trouble is when we go to our choose a report type screen, we still have this problem where there's way too many options, right? And our brand new deluxe report type is actually buried at the bottom of this list. So I want to show you a quick way to simplify that menu and bring forward the report types you want your users to be using. Now this does require that you switch into Classic, but once you make these changes, they do take effect in Lightning. There is an idea out there to bring this feature to Lightning for parity, but for now you just have to switch to Classic really quick to make that change. So let me show you in 60 seconds just how easy it is to simplify this menu, get rid of all the noise, and just bring to the forefront the report types you want your users using for all of their reporting. So if we type in a word like opportunities, yuck, there's still way too many options, and our deluxe report type is buried down there at the bottom of that list. So cancel out of that, switch over to Classic, And this is actually not in the setup menu at all. We're going to go to the Reports tab. We're going to click on New Report. And again, we're going to type in opportunities just to see what all the options are. At the top, there's this Select Report Types to Hide checkbox. And that brings you to this mode where there's a check or an X next to every single report type in your org. And you can go through that list and you can hide all the report types that you want to get out of the way. This is not deleting them, this is just hiding them. If you ever change your mind, you can always come back to this screen and toggle that X back to a check in order to see that report type again. And whatever you set up in Classic on that screen, when you switch back into Lightning and type in a word like opportunities, now you have just the report types you want your users using. Either they're going to be using the standard vanilla opportunities report type, and I'll tell you why. It's mostly for anybody who's adding new fields to your Salesforce org and you want to check to make sure they work real quick. That standard report type has new fields added to it by default. Every single field on the opportunity is always part of the opportunities standard report type. The only other option your users have is to use the opportunities deluxe report type. And if you can upgrade to deluxe for free, why wouldn't you, right? So the only other thing you need to know now that you've created your deluxe report type, you've simplified the menu to bring it to the forefront, is you need to know what word to type in on that choose a report type screen. And for that, I have this handy little riddle. Every row represents what kind of record? You're really trying to get your users to decide what should be the primary object in this report type. What level of granularity do we want to see for our report results? Because everything is based on the data model and we have all these one-to-many relationships, we need to know what level of the hierarchy do you want to display data for. And if your users come to you and they say, hey, I'm looking to get a report of my deals from last year, you just have to help them translate a little bit. Where do we store our deals in Salesforce? They'll say, oh, that's right, it's in the opportunity object. Perfect, so you want a list of opportunities, right? Yeah. So they type in opportunities on this choose a report type screen and they have just two choices. Do they want the standard opportunities report type that just has fields from the opportunity object, or do they want opportunities deluxe that has all of those fields that are useful to them and any field they want from any related object, from parent objects, grandparent objects, great-grandparent, and so on. That deluxe tailored experience, this naming convention is really going to hit this home for people. So again, if you can upgrade to deluxe for free, why wouldn't you? No more fumbling around with trying to get the right report type. No more spending 2 hours on a report before realizing it's wrong. You'll just choose the right report type from the beginning the first time and get on with building your report. Now, how does that sound as a much better experience for working with Salesforce reports? I'd love to hear from you if you get this set up. Please share your stories on Twitter. I have a deluxe report type hashtag that you can use to get the word out there. Help me spread this to the rest of the Ohana. You can tag me at @RealEvanPonter. And I have a couple resources for you on your journey to success. If you want to take a screenshot of this slide, that might be good. There's a Trailhead module on reports and dashboards. There is a whole series of blog posts on reportforce.blog. I am one of the authors for that blog. So I go into great detail on the Ultimate Guide to Report Type series about all the ins and outs of report types, building a deluxe report type, and plenty of other interesting, complex scenarios for all of your reporting needs. If you like videos, I have 2 videos there. One is a similar presentation to this one from Dreamforce a couple years back. And I have a quick video on hiding report types from the selection screen, which is also incredibly useful. And again, if you have any trouble or would like some professional services for your Salesforce org, I am a consultant. You can reach out to me at evan@pontersolutions.com. I'd be more than happy to help with any Salesforce problems that you're trying to tackle and get yourself to a better place. So please reach out if you have any questions or want to move forward on that.
And Evan, thank you very much again.
Yeah, thank you. This was
It was
great.
a great session. It was a
If I
great
can,
session.
I'll try to get to these questions right now if we still have a few minutes.
Okay, let's do it quickly. A couple of questions, please.
Okay. What about opportunity product? Would you start at opportunity still? I mean, if you wanted a report that shows you opportunity product records, I believe you can select opportunity product as your primary object. If that isn't possible, I cover this in my blog post, but for detail objects, it's actually okay to enforce the relationship since every single detail record is going to have a parent. You could say opportunities with opportunity products and call it opportunity products deluxe, and you'll be able to reference all of the fields. Will a new custom report type on a standard object be added to those deluxe report types? Same question for new field on a custom object. No, again, you'll have to manage all new fields you add for any of your custom report types. Oh, you asked too soon. Okay. Will adding additional joins impact the performance of the reports? As far as adding reference fields from other objects, I haven't seen any performance impact. I could imagine if you're referencing fields from 60 different unique objects and you have tons of data, that might start to become an issue, but I have not witnessed that or talked to anybody who's seen any performance issues from this. Will this work for reports if we want to have options of objects with or without relationships? I covered that scenario in my blog post. If you do need a with or without starting from the parent to a child, you will still have to create that custom report type. In my experience, I find that that's either always the case for one pair of objects or otherwise it's something that's pretty unique. It's totally fine to still use those report types for those scenarios. But for the most part, these deluxe report types can handle upwards of 90% of your reporting requirements. Report building in Lightning is very slow. Do you have any trick to make it improve its performance? I don't. I know there's a couple toggles they introduced recently to stop updating the preview while you're building. So you can toggle that to off so that you can just add the fields you need, columns and filters and stuff.
Let's take one more question and then
sure.
People can contact you.
When you step up objects, you can step up on the seemingly same thing a couple times. What is this? Like opportunity owner, manager, manager, manager. Oh, so if you keep seeing the same relationship, it's because there's a relationship to the same object. So in your example, once you get to a user, if you keep traversing the manager relationship, it's because every manager can have a manager. So you keep going up levels. Essentially, you're getting like grandparent users, great-grandparent users, and great-great-grandparent users. That actually comes in handy for the user object, the campaign object, the account object, anything that has a relationship to itself. You can traverse those multiple levels.
A lot of people are asking about the PowerPoint presentation. How can they get access to that?
I can make that available somewhere. I'm not sure the best place for that. If you reach out to me either on Twitter or send me an email, I'll go back to my email real quick. Shoot me an email. I'll be happy to send you the presentation.
Cool.